just have another minute or so before we get started, and this is great. I see Hamlet Ow arriving. That's James Ow in the physical world, and so we'll get started in just a minute. If you want to say something, Hamlet, just to kind of check your volume level, that'd be great. Can you hear me? And I'll say something again just to get our voice levels checked for the live stream. You want to say hello or say a few words, James, just to check your sound? And James, I don't hear you, so we may have
Oh,
there
up
we
and down.
are.
Ah, forgot to toggle my my voice, but here we go. How do I come in now? Oh, hey, Bryn. See Bryn and Rhiannon. It's mostly seeing a fog of avatars now and names. Hey,
All right, it's the top of the hour, so are we ready to begin?
someone's got a truck backing up.
Yeah, I have construction and it's been really quiet all day, but of course, right when the interview
Oh,
starts, I've got a big truck backing up.
perfect
But
timing.
yeah, but I'll turn my
We're
mic off whenever I'm
we're
not
we're back.
speaking.
We're backing up into the metaverse. It's a metaphor.
That's right. Here we go. We're backing up into the metaverse and let's begin. I'll start with my introduction of our wonderful expert in the metaverse today. So welcome everyone to our Virtual Worlds Education Consortium Metaverse Expert Series. And for those that are new, our website is www.vweconsortium.org. And you can find VWEC on many social media channels. I'm putting them right here in the local chat. We're being live streamed, and there's two locations. You can go to either live stream. We want to have a good backup of this recording. After the presentation today, we will move over to the deck for a social time for those who would like to stay and chat. It is my honor today and my pleasure to introduce our Metaverse expert speaker for Friday, September 24th, 2023. Wagner James Au Hamlet in Second Life is the author of a new book about the metaverse, and his blog New World Notes is the longest running and most widely read news and culture site devoted to the metaverse, platforms, and virtual worlds, and has been featured in the New York Times, the Atlantic Monthly, and the Washington Post, among many other outlets. In addition, James is an analyst and content editorial strategist. Past clients include the metaverse platform Sinewave Entertainment, Nokia, Samsung, Stanford Center on Longevity, Institute for the Future, TED speaker and futurist Amber Case. He's the author of several other books, and he's also a screenwriter. You can find James, also known as Hamlet Ow, on Twitter at this location or on LinkedIn. So, Hamlet, would you like to say hello to our VWEC audience?
Hey, wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for coming this wonderful Friday. And thank you for having me, Val. Really appreciate it and really enjoying the view here.
Well, as I said, it's an honor and a pleasure. Many of us have followed you for quite a long time here in the metaverse, and I highly recommend his book, which I have read, and you can
Thank
see
you.
on this slide, Making a Metaverse That Matters, from Snow Crash and Second Life to a virtual world worth fighting for. And in this book, he provides a thorough overview of the past, present, and future of virtual worlds. So I was thinking, the book is so well organized. I thought we might begin this interview with part one, which is the conception, the origin of the metaverse. So let's get started with that. And I'll start with a question and then you can take it away. In part one, You cover the conception of the metaverse, and I found that it validated what many of us sitting right here believe. Second Life is the original metaverse, which stemmed from Neil Stephenson's vision. Would you agree with that statement? And would you also tell a little bit about the near disaster that followed Second Life's early days?
Yeah, well, I'd say Second Life is the first metaverse platform to reach kind of broad mass market awareness, because people who've been around 2005, 2006, there was this huge media swarm of attention around Second Life, and often described as a metaverse during media. So that's when the concept really started appearing beyond how it was depicted in Snow Crash, which came out in 1992. Though in the book, I go even back as far as 1993, 94 is when people were talking about making the metaverse. In fact, one of the people I talked to, he went on to work for Apple and Linden Lab, was talking about how even Neil Stephenson himself, back in the right after the novel was published, he was talking about trying to build it, because he is himself a technologist, and so he was interested. He was talking, his name's Avi Bar-Zeev, who's been doing this since the early 90s. I asked Neil Stephenson about that. He's like, well, I don't quite remember that, but that could be. So yeah, there's been a lot of attempts to create the metaverse, but definitely Second Life was the first that was directly inspired by Snow Crash, along with Burning Man, because Philip Rosedale had just come from Burning Man, so kind of saw that as a visual and experiential reference point. But yeah, really, Second Life really had all of the features that go into what was described in the metaverse. And I start the book with a definition of the metaverse, which is a vast immersive virtual world that millions of people can access with highly customizable avatars and content creation tools that's linked to the real life economy. In other words, you can sell virtual content and make a living from it, and is connected to external technology, all of which is really important, I think, to distinguish this from a kind of more traditional MMO virtual world like World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Online, or just kind of an open chat space. It has to have all of those conditions. And for example, the last one I mentioned, connected to external technology, this is something that we saw described in Snow Crash, but we saw in Second Life, where there's a Japanese developer who he figured out a way to connect Second Life to someone who is profoundly paralyzed and handicapped, but connected their brain to Second Life, so they were able to navigate in the world and interact with people in the virtual world. And that's an important function, of course, because as we've seen, these platforms, especially Second Life, has been very valuable for people who do have physical or mental disabilities. So yeah, that's all of what goes into the definition. And so that's the conception. And so yeah, Second Life had all of those things more or less from the beginning, and that's kind of how we got started.
Great, and I'm glad you brought up that it's been a great platform for people with disabilities. We're very interested in that, particularly since there's a lot of educators here today. And some of the audience members here today have been in Second Life since way back at the beginning that you're talking about. And they continue to believe that this virtual world really has such a great interface. It's the best. We explore other places because you don't have to import content from programs like Unity or Unreal Engine. So do you agree with that? And do you believe, Second Life still has a good future?
Well, it has a lot of really great functionality. Really, more than anything, it just has this long-lasting, established creative community that has been here for 20 years. So you go in and you immediately have this lush, thriving world. There's a lot of challenges that I get into in the book that have kept it a niche relative to, say, Roblox or VR chat. I will say you can create content dynamically in other virtual worlds, like Rec Room, for example. You can do that to a certain extent. But you're right, that or Minecraft for that matter. But you're right that with Second Life, you have that ability to do prim-based content creation immediately, and so it has a lot of those powers. One thing that has held Second Life back is it's not been on mobile. I asked Philip about that, and he's happy to acknowledge, yeah, we really miss mobile, and didn't think it would be as big as it would be. But fortunately, it's finally, I'm sure you've all seen the news, Second Life is finally coming to mobile. It's integrated with the Unity 3D engine, and that's going to launch later this year, early next year, at least in early beta. And yeah, that's really exciting because that's a chance to drive Second Life into a mass market in terms of at least millions of users as opposed to 600,000. So I'm really excited about that, and hope Linden Lab sees it as an opportunity to grow the user base beyond this kind of existing community of us. It would be great to get new blood, and we've seen that. Like IMVU is kind of also ran sort of like a virtual Second Life clone. Came out shortly after Second Life, but they were floundering until they went to mobile, and now they have like 7 million users. So Second Life has much more powerful creation tools and a much more diverse creative economy. So I think we'll see even larger than 7 million if Linden Lab does it right. So yes, I'm very hopeful.
That's so exciting. I think with the mobile platform, more people will be exposed to what Second Life is. You could listen and be on the go and still be able to participate in things without being at home. A lot of benefits for mobile. And so if we move on to the next part in your book, after conception, is realization. And in part 2, you share the rise, and you just mentioned a couple of them, the rise of many VR platforms with millions of users, particularly Fortnite and Roblox, which are giants, among others.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that this smaller number of residents in Second Life have a secure future? We're really small in number compared to those giants. Do we have a future as the metaverse evolves?
Yes, we do have a future, though it's going to be a challenge unless we grow the user base. I mean, you can see that if you follow any social media, like people in Second Life are literally dying because a lot of the longtime users who started in their, say 40s are now in their 60s if they've been around for 20 years. And so the community is still very thriving, but just demographically, because of real life, we're going to start losing people, and we need to grow people from Generation Y, Generation Z to really kind of extend it. If it's able to extend into the next generation, it'll last forever. So that's a real challenge. It's interesting. I've noticed. I've talked about, for example, like Second Life should have more game qualities, and or also go on mobile. And I noticed, about 2012, 2014, like the established Second Life community was kind of resistant to that. Like, well, no, we're fine. And, you should work on addressing our community. But I think that's changed, at least experientially. I've seen people realize they do need to see mass growth. And the community is very excited. Like that was my most popular post I posted about the Unity mobile viewer, and people were super excited. So I think everyone is excited about this idea of bringing in a whole new wave of people.
That is really exciting. And another advantage, as you were saying that I always think of is here there's so much avatar customization and the ability to build things yourself, where in so many of the VR worlds, everyone just looks alike and they have no legs, So, if Second Life can continue to grow, it would be fabulous.
Yeah, and I should say, I highly recommend people explore other virtual world platforms like VR Chat, for example, has an extremely amazing range of diverse avatars. In fact, I'd actually challenge that a little bit because with the rise of Mesh, a lot of the Second Life culture has been shifted around Mesh to be highly realistic human avatars. And so that's actually hurt the diversity of the Second Life avatar range. It's just that the economy is so centered around highly realistic mesh bodies. So you got Maitreya and the other ones, and it's created kind of an oligopoly, not only economically but culturally. And I mentioned that in the book as kind of a mistake that with Linden Lab just launching mesh without a thought around how that would alter the economy and culture. But you're right, definitely there's a lot of range of possibilities, but definitely explore, because even a Roblox has a fair amount of diverse avatars.
Yes, and we have some people in the audience today. A couple of my colleagues from San Jose State University. We go
Oh, great.
on VR field trips, and we go to places like Roblox and VR Chat, Rec Room, to be aware, of what is out there, because it's important that we're all aware of the other places and the competition and how the metaverse is evolving. And you just mentioned the next topic that I was going to ask you about, metaverse economy. I thought that was really interesting in the book, how you explain a bit about metaverse economy. And Linden's were one of the very first metaverse, almost like cryptocurrency out there. And not that I understand cryptocurrency, but here's the question. You mentioned cryptocurrency, you mentioned Lamania 1, and you suggest that Second Life Linden currency played a role in the evolution of the cryptoverse. Could you kind of
Yeah,
summarize that, where
for
we
better
are?
and worse. Yeah, well, so Linden dollars at first were just a virtual currency, and they had no value beyond within the game world itself. And Second Life was launched as a game in the beginning, but the 2004 2005, at first it was users, people, real veterans will remember Open Gaming Market was doing it at first, and then Linden Lab kind of partly shunted them aside, or pushed launched their own Lindex, where you could actually buy and sell Linden dollars for US dollars. And so that really started the virtual economy, and that was kind of one of the final pieces to make Second Life an official metaverse platform, because as I mentioned, that's one of the features, is there's an integration with the virtual economy with the real world economy. And there was an interesting side piece to that, was that 2011 is when Bitcoin launched, but for a long time there was no way to convert Bitcoin to US dollars. But what people realized early on, Bitcoin users realized, is they could exchange Bitcoin for Linden dollars and then convert the Linden dollars to US dollars. So actually, and Bitcoin enthusiasts themselves, Bitcoin Media has said this, Linden dollars helped launch Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, just because it had the only really thriving virtual to real economy. And so a lot of Bitcoiners went in to Second Life only or mainly to cash out their Bitcoin. In fact, I talked with Palmer Luckey, the notorious founder of Oculus VR, and he was saying, I had Bitcoin early on, and some guy insisted I had to go in Second Life to exchange it, and so that really got it started. What's really interesting, and I never tire of saying this, is that Linden dollars have always been more successful than Bitcoin in terms of actually using it as a currency to buy and sell goods and services. People use Linden dollars far more than they use Bitcoin. What we've seen is Bitcoin is mostly a speculative, not really a currency, and it's if it is used, it's used for nefarious purposes or black market purposes. So it's not really used as a currency, but Linden dollars are. So that's been interesting. Lamina One that you mentioned, they don't use Bitcoin, though. It is it's a cryptocurrency in terms of it being connected to a blockchain layer. Blockchain being the disaggregated, decentralized ledger to track purchases. And so Lamina One is going to do that with the idea of having it serve like many virtual world platforms, and that'll be the layer to support the open metaverse. And that's I forget if you mentioned that, but that was actually co-founded by Neil Stephenson himself. So it's his attempt to create the metaverse. I think people miss that, is Neil Stephenson is trying to create the metaverse, and it's through Lamina One. and laying down the foundation. Though I actually am skeptical of his approach. I don't think it's going to work as easily as it will if it was not a blockchain based world. But we can get into that later. But yeah, that's the relationship between Linda Dollars and the cryptoverse, so to speak.
It's fascinating that Neil Stephenson is still involved in the metaverse, since everyone credits him for coining the phrase or the word metaverse.
Yeah.
And with the cryptocurrency and thinking about virtual world currency, even the kids' virtual worlds have money in them. So they're learning from a young age, and they will probably understand blockchain and NFTs better than I do. As they're growing up with that kind of economy. It's fascinating. And the next portion I wanted to get into is really the meat of where many of us are right now, the promises and perils of the metaverse. And so, the first question I wanted to ask you from part 3 of your book, you explore how this technology might evolve in the future, and this word that has been coming up for so long for many of us, interoperability. I was so surprised by your suggestion that really it may be a myth that it's imperative, because you say, I'm going to quote this, only community must be interoperable. We can go anywhere in the metaverse with our communities, but maybe the platforms don't have to be interoperable. So I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about what you think about interoperability.
Yeah, well, and this is a big rant where I end up disagreeing with like Neil Stephenson and other people who've promoted an open metaverse. And I think what the mistake is assuming that the metaverse should be interoperable like the web and web pages. But the thing is, web pages are more or less have the same experience across all the various web pages, where virtual worlds are very different. Just on a fundamental level, they have different physics. They have different ways of displaying the 3D virtual world, different ways of allowing people to create content. There's so many ways that are different, and we're right now, a lot of advocates are trying to force them to interoperate together, and we saw that again. The old timers will remember IBM, one of the biggest tech companies in the world. They tried to interoperate Second Life with OpenSim, the open source version of Second Life, and it really, they were able to do it, but it really kind of didn't work in the sense that people just were not interested, really, because, and I echoing what you said, community is what matters. Is that people had their user communities, their friends within Second Life, so it's sort of why would I take my community elsewhere when my community is here? And in terms of interoperability, it's much more feasible and much more desirable, I think, for the users if they're able to take their friends with them. And that could be some way of, when you create an account, it could recognize that you have friends that are already in the world, or allow your friends from other worlds to find you. And I think that's going to be a much more potent way of exploring interoperability, instead of thinking, well, I got to take my virtual car with me, or I got to take my Maitreya mesh with me. Just think about taking your friends' network with you. And we're already kind of doing that. What's interesting is there's all this talk about interoperability, and in the meantime, actual people, they have Discord, and so they create their friends networks on Discord or Facebook even, or Twitter or TikTok, and they find their friends from various virtual worlds and go to other ones, just say, hey, find me on this one, and here's my name. And so it's already happening on a practical level. As is usually the case, the community figures out workarounds, and I think a lot of technologists, they get too much in their heads, and they're thinking through these problems as an abstract theoretical problem. But if they actually talk to the community is already in practice being interoperable. And really, if the developers don't work on making communities interoperable, what will probably happen is Discord will become the dominant player, because people will interoperate through Discord. So yeah, that's my play on that. I haven't really seen a convincing argument otherwise. I've asked many people about this who say, well, interoperability, I could take my swords with me and I could take my content, and I'll say, well, why would you want to do that? And I don't really get a really good answer on that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having this debate. Maybe then I'll debate Neil Stephenson. Like, oh,
Yes,
come on,
I think it
come
would
on,
be
dude, do you
great
really
if you
do this?
did. It'd be great if you did, because we're all starting to use Discord for many
Yeah,
of the back channels across the metaverse, because so many of the
exactly.
worlds don't have voice. And I like how in the book you point out that the physical world is not interoperable. We can't teleport across the ocean from one place to another. You got to get on a plane and and it's kind of like that. You're in the metaverse, but we used to hypergrid across the open sims, and we thought, well, maybe the metaverse will be like that. But
Yeah,
perhaps it's not
yeah,
necessary. I love that it's community that needs to be together.
yeah. Well, and the original title of the book is Why the Metaverse Matters. And the punchline is, well, because virtual communities matter. You grow these massive international, highly diverse communities in a metaverse platform that would be hard to create in a real world facing internet platform. All the social media channels, we mostly have friends that we already knew in real life and our family. But you have this platform that we're in right now. We know people, these are people from all over the world, all ages, all races, all economic backgrounds, and that's really powerful. And so yeah, that's what matters is the communities.
I think we all love that statement and agree with it. And I think the next generation, as they grow up into the metaverse, may create, like some of us have done, the same username across platforms so we can find one another in other
Yeah,
worlds.
yeah. That's kind of a de facto interoperability of community, like I mentioned, where I do that myself. I have like accounts in VR chat and Rec Room and so on, and I have a variation of Hamlet in the account name, so it's easy for people to look me up. But yeah, that's one way of thinking about interoperability, or like I mentioned, doing it through Discord.
Absolutely. And on that same topic of the promises and the perils, certainly many of us here totally agree with your perspective in the book that you give on the VR headsets. They're not really necessary for the metaverse, and I'm so
No.
glad you make that clear. They should be an option. Do you feel that virtual
Yes.
worlds on a desktop are going to continue in the future alongside mobile devices and headsets?
Yeah, and I think mobile will be the dominant. That is what's dominant. I mean, counting Roblox and Fortnite as metaverse platforms, the most of the users are on mobile. Um, and yeah, PC to a certain extent will be in second place because it's easier to create content on a desktop. And then VR, there is a passionate user base of VR users, but I mean, this is why I get into it in the book, and this is one of the I think it's one of the newsworthy things in the book is I talked with Dana Boyd, who is a longtime researcher in academia on technology. She's with Microsoft at the time and now, but she wrote a study back in 2001 pointing out that VR has a propensity. I'm talking about VR headsets. VR headsets have a propensity to make people, women in general, biological women, nauseous. She had that own experience. She went into an early VR simulation and she threw up. And she researched this further, and she suggested there might even be a hormonal component because she cites research from a organization in the Netherlands when people were transitioning from female to male by taking male hormones. They were actually able to navigate 3D virtual spaces in their mind better or more efficiently. So there might be a hormonal component. But in any case, I checked in with her while I'm writing the book, and I said, "Well, you wrote this really powerful essay that a lot of people talked about in 2014 called Is VR Sexist?" inadvertently, but did anyone contacted you about it? And hardly anyone in the VR space contacted her. And she's one of the most well-known technologists, academics in technology. No one at Meta contacted her. And I asked people at Meta, I've asked like 5 people at Meta, No one has looked into this. So we've seen there's been at least 2 studies subsequent to her report that yes, women do have a propensity to get nauseous in VR, but it hasn't really been studied by Meta, and as far as we can tell, nobody else. I talked to Corey Andreka, who you'll remember he's basically the co-founder of Second Life. He ended up joining Meta, or it was called Facebook back at the time, and he's the one who actually got Facebook to acquire Oculus. And I asked Corey, well, but Corey, has anyone at Zuckerberg's company looked into this propensity to get nauseous among biological females? And he said no, but he said, yeah, I'm very aware of Dana's research, and yeah, Meta should be spending the money on that. But yeah, that's very newsworthy to me that at least $100 billion has been spent on VR headsets at this point. When you think about all the companies, and we don't know if it has a propensity to cause half the population literally puke. So that's a big thing to talk about. And at the very least, stop presenting the metaverse. Like if you'll see in news reports, Tom Bostroff pointed this out. It'll always be someone in VR headsets, and that creates such a misconceived impression of the metaverse as people in VR headsets, when in point of fact it's not mostly people in VR headsets. And also there's a gender bias to that. You're kind of assuming people are going to want to be on VR headsets, and yeah, it's just very problematic.
You are so right on that, and I think this is a critical issue. And I believe also research has not been done on the developing brain of children and adolescents and what the VR headset is doing to their brain. So the idea, and you point out a lot of myths in the book, and the one myth is that the metaverse is a headset, and it's not. So I love that you're shattering that myth. And so another question, our audience here, as you know, at the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium, we have the focus on education, teaching and learning, both formal and informal, as we're all lifelong learners. Well, in Chapter 11, you share what you call the metaverse age cliff, and the fact that consumers, the interest in the metaverse platforms tends to drop off sharply after their mid to early 20s. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's just the basic user data. If you look at the demographic, usage, that you'll have a lot of activity in preteens, teens, later teens, and then you get into kind of college age. I have a chart for that from Nick Mytham, who studies this as well for his analytic firm Metaverse. But yeah, it literally looks like a cliff. It looks like a sharp drop off, and it hasn't been studied. I think like in terms of like an academic study, but you just think about it in common sense. I think what happens is people go to college, and they want to explore their real life. They're going on dates, they're going to parties, they're going to concerts, and so people start shifting away from the virtual world. I mean, there's still a lot of heavy gaming, but in terms of kind of a more broadly expansive virtual world where you're putting a lot of time into that tends to fade in the 20s. And the only exception really is Second Life. I think most of us are probably not in our 20s or even 30s, that people start coming back. At least with Second Life, people start coming back in their 40s and 50s. I think as people get they get established, they have a house, or they're more comfortable, they have more time, and they're still creative, and they still want to explore really fun, imaginative virtual worlds. So they start coming back. But the challenge is bringing the whole population back, and also keeping the people that are in Roblox and Fortnite and so on, giving them a reason to stay there. And if you look at what's been happening with Roblox in particular, it was very popular with kids, mostly kids, but about 25% of the population now is adult, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you think about it, Roblox has about 300 million monthly active users, so it's upwards of over 50 million people that are adults, and the idea is to grow it. And what Roblox has been doing is they've been adding more and more features to keep adults. They've added graphics possibilities that make Roblox look as good as a PlayStation or Xbox. They added, or they just announced, a calling feature. You can actually call people from within Roblox, and like I said, it's 300 million people, so there's a lot of people you can call. So yeah, that's one a way of addressing the age cliff. The other way I talk about it is really to revive the mind share of the metaverse, to really talk about the metaverse in terms not just of like a game platform or as a way of marketing, because that's how people talk about it now, but talk about art. For example, I saw Britt O in the audience, and I mentioned her in the book as one of the pioneers of virtual art. AM radio I profile in the book as well, but I would love to see a revival of there was a conference called State of Play in 2003 to 2005 that was put together by academics, mostly in law professors, but also people in sociology and ethics. And that was just a really good way of talking about virtual worlds and metaverse platforms on a high level, and talking about the possibilities, exploring the political, sociological ramifications and aesthetic ramifications. And I would love to see that happen. If someone wants to help put it together, I'd love to help get that going, really, to bring that mind share back, because we're really part of the backlash we're facing, and there has been a backlash against the metaverse, just as we saw a backlash around Second Life in 2008, is that people kind of said, well, it's just a game and it's mostly kids. And the only way to address it, I really think, is just get that mind share back. It's just like, no, we're gonna talk about it on a high level. We're gonna get people that are academics that are really capable of talking about virtual worlds on that elevated level, and get people excited, saying, no, this is something that we can do that is different from social media, that has advantages that social media doesn't have, and get people passionate about it, not just for kids or for marketing, but for just as one of the important channels of the internet. So absolutely. I think that's how we'll really get over the age cliff.
I'm so glad that you said that. We would love to be more involved in conferences to get the word out. And that's the whole point of this consortium where we're sitting here today. And you mentioned the importance of those conferences in the book. On page 261, you stated, a venue to reposition these virtual worlds away from being merely games or commercial enterprises and establish them as platforms for creating art, education, and culture. And we can play a role in that. And Philip Rosedale made a statement on this, as you said, back in 2003. And just think about that. Here we are 20 years later, and we still have these promises and perils to address. So what do you think needs to change to help educators embrace the metaverse for serious learning, since the kids are already active in Minecraft, Roblox, and other virtual worlds? What can we do to help, encourage them?
Well, yeah, the Minecraft has a huge user base of there's a Minecraft education version. I think it's free, but it's been downloaded, I believe, 40 million times. So there's a lot of educators using it. And I think the thing with Minecraft that's been very valuable is the educators went where the kids were. The kids were already in Minecraft and also now already in Roblox. So it's easier for educators to use Minecraft and Roblox to a lesser extent as educational tools. With Second Life, we saw that when there was a lot of interest with educators who are using Second Life, is most of their students had never used Second Life. So you already have this really high barrier to entry. I mean, with the mobile app, that might be a time to explore it, is to think about using Second Life as an education tool, but make it mobile facing, because we all might forget this, but the Second Life user interface, I'll just say it's a flaming hot pit of garbage for 99% of consumers. It's just very confusing. It's really there's so many features that overwhelm 99% of people, literally 99%. That's who quit Second Life usually within the first hour. So just educators have to be realistic about that. And I think the chance is with the mobiles to do a shift on mobile, because people are much more uh, uh, acceptable and open to exploring something on mobile, and they are, from what I've seen in the videos, they are working on a UI that's a lot easier. So that would be the thing. Hopefully all of you all are signed up to join the mobile alpha app, or the alpha beta tester. I mean, because
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that's gonna be exciting.
Yes, I think that's a huge promise for the future to help people understand the value of Second Life. And as far as predictions, our goal here at VWEC, as you know, is to bring educators and learners and virtual worlds together, both to share the past, what's been successful, to tackle obstacles across all these different metaverse platforms and communities. So your book, I mean, I highly recommend it because it aligns
Thank you.
perfectly with our goals. Do you have any predictions that you might share, or any obstacles or stumbling blocks that you see for educators who want to utilize the metaverse specifically for teaching and learning?
Well, beyond well, specifically Second Life, there's the user interface challenges we talked about. One of the other challenges, and I put this right in the beginning, the metaverse is not for everyone. If you look at who uses 3D immersive experiences, it's basically 1 in 4 of the population, and that's people who played mostly games on consoles, on mobile, on PCs. It's about 1 in 4. So that's already a huge hurdle for educators, because you don't want to say, well, only 1 in 4 of my class can go in this experience. But like I said, that females tend to have a propensity to get nauseous in 3D experiences, especially if they're VR headsets. I even point out Nick Yee, another researcher's pointed out Asians tend to have a propensity to get nauseous as well. So there's already that barrier to 3D experiences. So just be realistic and realize that it could be 1 in 2 or 1 in 4 of if you're talking about kids that are going to find a virtual world experience something that they can use without getting nauseous or even just bored. And so think about ways of including everyone in the experience. So it could be make the virtual world aspect of the education an option if people want it, but not obligatory. Because yeah, you're gonna set an unfair bar on the three-fourths of people that are not interested or also can't use it, because you have to have at the very least a high-end iPhone or Android. A lot of people don't have that. So that's one thing. Another thing, and I would put this as a challenge to educators, is I think we need to see much more very easy to digest ROI on virtual world education. Like show me the education simulation that you did in a virtual world, and show how that was more valuable than if you did it in another platform. Because I've asked a lot of educators this question, and I haven't gotten a really good answer around that. And especially, I would imagine, to get funding, either from sponsors or from educational institutions themselves, you have to prove that you can actually teach people more effectively in a virtual world than you would in other mediums, like just on Zoom, for example. So that's another challenge to work on. And if I'm missing any research on that, please get in touch, because I've been frustrated with that. I'll get contacted by professors telling me, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this thing in a virtual world," and I'll ask them, "Well, so is this more effective than doing it on Zoom or whatever?" And yeah, it's kind of an open question still.
Yes, and we're trying to gather research on all of this to keep, because there is a lot of research that's been done, and we need to share it, because you're right, it's not for everyone. It's just one tool in our toolbox, balancing the physical world and the virtual world for digital citizens. And I have a couple links I'm going to share that also have some questions for you. As I was reading, I did a blog post about your book, and how much
Yeah, great post.
I aligned so well to it. And the idea that your definition matches mine, I feel like when you're in the metaverse, you're embodied in a real place. It's not,
Hmm.
and I like this. I liked here's how you put it, that you're in a real place. You said, and you even see this in English with prepositions, where people say you go on Facebook, but you go in Roblox or Second Life or whatever, because
Right.
we're sharing a place together as avatars. And you don't do that when you're just online. So you agree
Yeah.
with that statement that
Oh
we're
yeah.
in a place. I think
Yeah, well,
that's
that's
interesting.
that's Tom Belstorff, who I'm sure everybody here knows. Yeah, he put that so well that yeah, that sense of being in something that's across all 3D immersive experiences. We're gonna go into Call of Duty, or we're gonna go into Grand Theft Auto, but yeah, definitely we're going into Second Life, and we're in there right now.
And we're in a place. And then I stumbled upon this interview with Philip
Yeah.
Rosedale and yourself, and I'll give you all this link because it's real interesting listening to them talk about the book as well as the future and the past, present, and future of the metaverse. So there's a link if you want to see the interview with Philip Rosedale later. And
Yeah, it
then,
was a
of
lot of fun.
course, yeah, I bet that was a lot of fun. And I was so glad you said that Philip Rosedale is very excited about the mobile app. And perhaps if he knows that a lot of us are excited about it, he might even come here, and talk with us about the Second Life
Oh
mobile
yeah,
app.
I would think
So
so. Yeah.
that would be awesome. And of course, I do want to also share your blog because many of us here have been following this for years, of course. Here's Hamlet's blog. It's New World Notes. And I'll also share a couple of links where you can buy the book if you don't already have your own copy. This is a great book to have. It tells you about the past and the present and the future of the metaverse. So there's an easy way to access that book. And I know that we don't have a lot of time left, but there's probably already been some questions that have come up in the chat, and Meryl has been watching those. If she didn't catch it, you can feel free to post it again in the local chat. Um, and we'll see if anybody has a question. I did make a note myself too. I'll look for it.
Yes, and thank you so much. And yes, if you feel inclined to buy my book, I would be incredibly grateful. I've put basically 20 years of work into it, and a lot of it's been on the blog or started in the blog. So yeah, if you value what I've written in the blog, I'd be super, super grateful, just because it's hard to sell books. So yes, that would be really awesome. And I'll be signing books. Well, I'll probably put out an announcement that I'll start signing. Anyone who wants an autograph, I'll sign it and I'll mail it to you. But yes, thank you so much. So we're taking questions.
I see Roy has a question. What do you think could be done to improve the interface? Because you mentioned it. We've heard about that steep learning curve for years. Probably
Yeah.
mobile is going to be one thing that will improve. Anything else?
Yeah, well, one of the best ways of thinking about it is think about Minecraft, which is ridiculously huge. It's upwards of 200 million people. And if you look at the Minecraft interface, everything on the screen is about surviving, because you go in and your first goal in Minecraft is to survive the creepers. So everything there is, it's either about moving around to escape the creepers, or swinging your weapon or your fist to attack the creeper, defend yourself. And so really the interface is centered around one goal. And to apply that with Second Life, what I would say is the interface when you log in should be very, very simple at first, and there should be a game aspect around it. Like, in other words, it should be, for example, you have to escape the island, the orientation island that you get in. So all you can do is you can move your avatar around, and then you can slowly add features and make it a game. And kind of the game is to, like, the meta game is to learn the user interface, but don't give everyone the entire user interface at once. I did a post about this. I counted all the buttons, and on Second Life, all the options, and it's almost 50, which is just it's really not. I'm just looking. I have this heads up thing that I can adjust my avatar, and that alone is like 16 options, and then I got 12 options on the bottom and 12 on the top, and 6 on the side. It's just it's overwhelming to people. So at least in the beginning, create a game experience and start simple and build from there, because it's all about keeping people in long enough to really start meeting people and seeing incredible content and really feel comfortable enough to create content. So yeah, make it a game to get to that point.
Yes, I think here at the VWEC Welcome Plaza, we put some gateways that you can go into orientation paths, but you have to know that they're there because it is overwhelming at first. It takes a while to really learn how to walk and get dressed and interact with everything. And I think that Meryl may have collected a couple other questions. Feel free to speak in voice, Meryl, or in local chat.
Yes. Any thoughts on spatial cognition? Lots of work done by neuroscientists. I'm interested in an intersection between virtual worlds and spatial cognition.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Virtual worlds and
spatial cognition.
Spatial cognition?
Yes.
Could you be more specific? I'm not totally sure.
And this was submitted by let me I have to scroll back up.
Yeah, what comes to mind to me when thinking about that in the metaverse is just the whole concept of utilizing the 3D elements here, and being able to the different spatial areas of 3D, which of course, you don't want to come in here and just do something that you could do on a PowerPoint. You want to take advantage of the ability to build in 3D.
Yeah. Well,
3D,
yeah, you want to make
3D XI asked the question.
3D Exile?
XI?
3DSI. I'm not following this question. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was going to say maybe 3D would want to elaborate his question.
I can't.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, mostly anecdotally, just that if you have a 3D immersive experience, you are going to process the information within it in a different way than you would if it was just on like 2D, if it was written. And yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons where we're using these platforms is we see this, we remember this experience as something that happened, like as something that we experienced because we're in it. Actually, something even better potentially in a 3D immersive space like this, because you're organizing information spatially. And so that's a really compelling way for people who, like I said, are comfortable and enjoy navigating 3D spaces. I actually, again, this is sort of folds into what I was talking about with the ROI of educating in virtual worlds. Is I would like to see research on that. That's we kind of know intuitively, and just from seeing the numbers of people that do this, that they find that valuable, and so that would imply that that there is a lot of power in spatial cognition, but yeah, I'd love to see more hard data around that. Just as something to include when we're talking about this, because a lot of people, like I mentioned, most people, they look at this, they go, well, this is just a game, right? But if we can say, well, no, there's ways to learn or process information even more powerfully in a 3D spatial experience than in 2D, then we'd have a much stronger argument, at least for education. Thank you.
You have another question from Marie. The VR Explorers Club is focused on helping educators understand which virtual worlds might be appropriate for delivering educational experience. Some of the places we've been, Decentraland and Somnium Space, seem to be there just to sell stuff. Do you think these places are actually viable in the long run?
And you said Decentraland and Somnium Space, and
yes.
Those are both part of what they call the cryptoverse. They're blockchain crypto based. So far, no, they are very much not proven to be sustainable. They're actually they have very low user bases, like active users. I think Decentraland's down to a few thousand people, and near as we can tell, it's the people who are active users are hoping that others come in to buy property because their property will be more valuable. And I get into this in the book. That's one of the reasons I think the cryptoverse has failed, is they missed the insight that a virtual world and content is only valuable to the community that is there first and values each other. You can't go in and put a monetization mechanic immediately, because then immediately that's the only people that are going to go in, and people want to make money. What you want to do is have a very powerful virtual world experience and people in there to enjoy creating content with each other. And then you can slowly add the virtual economy features. Like Second Life, technically launched in 2002, early closed beta 2002 through most of 2003, and it was a very positive virtual world community and really set the tone of the community to put a lot of emphasis on creativity and getting that Burning Man spirit of people creating for the sake of creating for each other, to create to benefit the larger community and make that a goal. And then slowly add the economy. And the economy is great in a lot of ways, but also has a lot of downsides. It's capitalism at minimum is highly imperfect, so it's going to have a lot of negative downsides, and we have those. But with Decentraland, Somnium Space, and the other ones, the Sandbox is another one. They got that wrong. They did not put a value on community first, and so now they have no community.
And if there are other questions, I have missed them.
Yeah.
And the questioners may want to pose the questions themselves.
Or maybe Valerie, you could read. I can barely hear. You could maybe put it in IM or something.
Yes, please type your question again in the local chat if you don't want to use voice, and I will be happy to read that. Here's one, a question from Ilsa. I'm going to sadly have to buy your first book on Second Life again, as I've lost it somewhere along my travels. Can you give a brief sentence or two or three about it and tell us where it would be best for us to buy it, your other book on Second Life?
Well, I didn't make too much of a fuss, but the good news is I published a 20-year anniversary edition. If you go to the to my website, go to New World Notes, you'll see it on the right. I created a Kindle edition that I think it's just $10, but I created a new afterword and a new preface. So I've greatly expanded it. It's available. You would have to get it through a Kindle. You don't have to have a Kindle itself. You can use the Kindle app for iPhone or Android. But yeah, there's a new edition. But yeah, thank you so much.
Looks like Shiloh found that. Great. Okay. And if you open that link, you can see it's the making of Second Life, notes from the
Yeah.
New World Kindle edition.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, I'm looking to see if I missed any other questions in the local chat, and I am going to just type in a little tiny bit of close here, and then we certainly can take more questions. Just a reminder that the recording is going to be on our VWEC Expert Series, and I'll put the playlist there. And I would like to say that we have these expert series going on Friday afternoons twice a month. The next one is October 13th, when we'll be joined by William Krebs, who is Agile Bill. You may know him in Virtual Worlds. And I'll just put a few of the links here to our calendar and other things in the local chat. We're on Discord, which we all talked about as a great back channel for the metaverse. And feel free to continue typing more questions here, because we have an expert here that knows a lot about the past of the metaverse and where we are now, and we really want to think about how we can best utilize Second Life and continue exploring other worlds that are evolving.
Great. And thanks again. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's been really fun. But yeah, I think we're going to hang out a little bit and go breakout space.
Yes, and someone's asking, where can I find it? I just put the link. If you look at all those links that I put there, the one that says Expert Series, that's on our YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is VWE Consortium. I'll also put that in chat.
Great. Yeah.